Hi, family. It is I, African Osorenko, right back at you. So, family, I am coming to you today to discuss the foster care system in America, okay, and how that foster care system affects Black families. Okay, family, so I want to read you something so that we can understand how this happens. So, according to the foster care system, African American children are overrepresented in the foster care system compared to the nation's child population. Now, remember, family, they keep telling us that we are only 13% of the population. And since maybe 2000, it may have risen 0.1%, but they still basically saying we are only 12% of the 12 or 13% of the population. However, our children are the most children in care. Okay, make that make sense. The math is not mathing on that situation. Although this is the case, ironically, the majority of the caretakers are Caucasian, okay? The very few foster parents that are African American tend to be Black women, okay? Family, let me say this. I worked in the foster care system for 23 years as a foster care supervisor, okay? And I went into that field because I love children, and I love the families and helping them come back together. So I was not the CPS person that removed the children. I was the person whose case managers or social workers work to return children, okay? You know, and but I got out of that system after 23 years because I saw that it just wasn't right. It was about politics and things like that. Okay, so family, let me read something to you. Okay, and this is from the federally mandated. Uh, I'm sorry. This is from the Adoptions and Safe Families Act that uh, has this information that says, how many uh, the demographics of the children that are in care. Okay, so it goes to read. It says, I'm sorry, family. When it comes to matters of the home, the constitutional provisions of the 14th Amendment give substantial difference to the independence of the familial unit to make its own decisions. First and foremost, right there, that is a problem. Because I know that there are other countries where you raise your children, and the government is not involved in just the day to day of you raising your children, or just can get involved like that. Now, if there's something going on and that is detrimental to the children, then that's a different story. But when it's just maybe a parent struggling, there should never be a removal of children. But there has been, and it has happened. Okay, and so it says these are instances, however, where the government deems it necessary to intrude upon the independence of the familial unit. This intrusion is especially evident in the foster care system. Although the system is, Although the system by its very definition requires some governmental intervention for the welfare of the child, the goal of the foster care should be assistance and eventually reunification. Because family, why are we bringing children into care just to have them in care and grow up and age out of foster care, or place them in homes that are not culturally conducive, okay, to them growing and thriving, and then either the child comes back in care by way of the Caucasian parent bringing that child back in care, or something happens to the child. I just saw the other day, and I haven't seen this on the news, on many of the news okay, outlooks, but another YouTuber did it. Whereas um, this white couple adopted 5 black children, and they were using these children as slaves. Family, there's a problem because when they say there's no more slavery in America, that is a lie. It is an outright lie because they have our children that they have enslaved in white homes. Okay, and let me tell you something. Let me finish reading this, and then I'm gonna fill you guys in on some information. This intrusion is especially, oh, I'm sorry, I already read that. The Adoption and Safe Families Act represents a stark deviation from that goal, with Black children representing an overwhelming percentage of the foster care population. Okay, you hear that? Black children overrepresent the children in care. 13%, but overrepresented in a foster care system, it doesn't make sense. Make it add up and make it make sense. Okay. Um, you know, it is, it's ridiculous. It says that um, it advocates early termination of parental rights and makes adoption instead of reunification its priority. Family, I have seen this. I have seen this. There are cases where a child will come into care and it is a black parent, and they can have a number of issues, issues that any parent can have. And it's a baby, and they will make and maybe she's had a previous uh, termination of her parental rights. They will make that case plan adoption instead of reunification. Well, okay, yeah, she had one child removed or 2 children removed, and or whatever, however it went, one child, and that child it was eventually adopted out, either by a stranger or a family member, preferably a family member. That's another thing too. That's a whole another thing. But but they'll make it adoption because that family now really wants that baby. That Caucasian family, they really want that baby. And if they can't get white babies, they're willing to take black babies. And I'm telling you, it's sickening. It's very sickening. And they almost treat it as though they have little pets. It's not, how Paris Hilton goes around with her dog, walking with her dog, carrying a dog like he's a little person or a little baby or something. This is the way they engage black babies and black children. Okay, like they're little pets. But it goes on to say that the aim is of removing black children from their homes as a means to achieve permanency should be what is happening. Okay, preservation of black families is essential to the advancement of the black community, and legislation should be directed at addressing the underlying social ills that are at the root of foster care dependence, instead under the pretext of advancing child welfare. Okay, absolutely. And promoting the destruction of black familial bonds, and represent a serious threat to black families. Family, we are under constant threat in America. Every day we are under threat. Okay. They tell us get over slavery. How do we get over slavery when your people are still engaged in slavery practices and with our children yet? I'm telling you, family, it's sickening. There is you have to have a desire to keep your children safe. There should be uh, there should be a huge drive to keep our children safe and from the hands of predators, murderers, sex perps. There we have to engage family, and relatives must step up. Family, know your rights. When your children come into care, you're given an attorney. If that attorney is not working on your behalf for your benefit, for reunification of your child, and you are doing everything that you can, you go before that court and get it on the record that you are requesting a different attorney. If you have to get a different attorney, that's what you do. You have those rights to do that. Family, please do that. Oh, okay. America has a law, and it's called ICWA, and ICWA, and it stands for the Indian Child Welfare Act. And let me tell you, I worked with that law when I worked in foster care, and I worked with Native Americans and the tribes and their attorneys and their governmental agencies, because the law is that when Indian children come into care, they must, the agency, the state must go above and beyond to place those children with tribal members. So whether they are relatives or actual just members of the tribe, they must do it in order to keep those children in a culturally safe environment. Notice that we don't have that right, family. Notice our children do not have those rights. It is a reason for that. It is a reason for that, family. And we have to understand that this is designed, I'm sorry, family, this is designed at destroying our families. And they can destroy our whole community by destroying our children, because our children are our future. And if they all jammed up and confused and drugged up and sick, and because they got all kind of trauma and issues from being taken from their family members, and then being put in a more devastating, deadlier, worse situation. That's what they're doing, family, and we have to fight that. And that's another thing. If our politicians cannot fight for us to have legislation where it's a must that our children are placed in homes, in Black homes or relatives, because first of all, family, that is what they're supposed to do. I had a case, family, where the mother had, I think, two of her children terminated previously. And a couple years later, she had another child, okay, a little boy. And the mother really was not able to, and this was not a Black family, this was a Hispanic family, but the mother was not really able to get herself together. And what happened is they had placed the child with a Caucasian family. However, it's my obligation, as working for that family, to find alternative relatives, and which is what I did. I mean, when I got the case, and the child had been in care about 6 months, almost a year, I think. Uh, the child was still under the age of a year. I found relatives. It was a distant cousin, but it was a relative. And the woman was, and she was married to another lady, but the woman was qualified to have the child. She wasn't on drugs. She wasn't an alcoholic on alcohol. She wasn't in trouble committing crimes. This was an appropriate person that was able to take this child. And when I tell you that the judge, the court, the state, everybody worked against it. And I had to go on record a few times saying that in the courtroom, saying that it is my responsibility to go above and beyond to make sure each child has familial needs met, has familial contacts met, and the placement can be culturally safe, where the child can thrive. So what I'm saying is, family, we have to start fighting for that kind of legislation for our children, because just as the Indian children have it, Black American children should have it too. It can be the freedmen, something to do with freedmen, because we are freedmen. And since the Supreme Court, or uh, I think Clarence Thomas, declared us to be freedmen, where Richard Bloom or whoever else can't come and try to sue and say, well, that's not fair. Oh, yes, it is fair. If they are descendants of slaves, they need to be placed in homes that are culturally safe. So then we can begin to fix our children and our company and our community. Family, I thank you so much for joining me today, and I want you guys to be blessed. Please like, subscribe, and share these videos. And again, I will see you again soon in the future. And I thank you. Namaste and be blessed. Bye, family.